Hello and welcome to this little Spalluccipedia video where again we have another little dive into the world of my fictional investigator of the paranormal, Sam Spallucci. And today I want to have a look at Sam's hometown, which if you've read the books you'll know is called Wellington. Now Wellington crops up a number of times across certain books. We certainly have it in Shadows of Lancaster when Sam goes back to visit his mother and encounters the ghost of his father, but it does actually crop up in other stories as well. Those of you who've read Songbird, the novella regarding Nightingale, the first regent then queen of the Children of Cain, you'll know that she lived in Wellington for a while, and she was in fact a servant to the local parish priest, who was a nasty piece of work and met quite the right sort of end at the fangs of her creator, Doulos the vampire. But also, in the far-flung future of the Spallucciverse, Wellington is known with a darker purpose. It's sort of like the base of operations, as it were, the lair of Canor, the Black Dragon, as they call him in the Bobby Normal books. So, where did I get the idea of Wellington from? Well, with Sam, I tend to go with what I know. With Lancaster, obviously, that's where he's works and lives these days. I use the Lancaster around me. For Wellington, I wanted to go back to my own roots. And it's actually based on a small town in Northamptonshire, just off the A45, called Wellingborough. A number of reasons as to why it might be called Wellingborough. There's a theory that I think it was a Saxon noble called Wendell, and it was his town, his borough, so Wendlingborough it might have been originally. But the town was also known to have a number of wells. So, you know, the town of the wells, it might also have been. And it's these wells which gained it quite a bit of fame in sort of like Tudor and Stuart times. In fact, I think it was Charles I. I don't think it was Charles II. It was Charles I came there to taste the waters from this healing well. And this idea has always stuck with me. So I thought when I was creating Wellington, I wanted the idea of these mystical waters there. And they're mentioned in passing in Sam, but they're mentioned a bit more sort of to the forefront, shall we say, in the Songbird story. And in fact, Nightingale has this mystical confrontation with the waters rising up in the All Saints Church, and it causes this cataclysm, which sees her being punished more and eventually being led to her becoming a vampire, one of the Children of Cain. So yeah, it's sort of, I grew up there. I mean, I left there when I would have been about 19, so I'm 50 at the time of recording this, so over 30 years ago. But I still remember the place like the back of my hand. So when I talk about places in the books, there tend to be places which did exist. It was first actually used in Fallen Angel, which at the time of writing hasn't yet been published. And again, it is centred a lot around the All Saints Church. Now, All Saints itself is actually based on the parish church in the centre of Wellingborough called All Hallows. All Hallows being another version of the word for All Saints. Feast day being All Saints Day, where we get Halloween from, the eve of All Hallows. And I was, like Sam, I was a choir boy there, and like another character who's going to crop up when you get around to reading Fallen Angel, was also chorus to that. And I'll do another video specifically on All Saints, because there's a lot to look at. It's one of these major parts of Spallucciverse. It's a sort of a nexus point, as it were. And it's lots of little stories also converge there, and ultimately in Fallen Angel. So that needs a video on its own, so watch out for that one. But for now, yeah, just say, yeah, All Saints, it's a real church, and the description of it with the font, with the rood screen, with the great big crucifix on top, they are exactly as it is in real life, albeit there is no inscription on the font saying knaves are not our responsibility. But Wellington wasn't the only place around there that I used. In the Bobby Normal books, I refer to Erlingbury and I refer to Orchester, which are two little villages around the outskirts of Wellington. And again, they are based on real places. I just swapped the names around. There's Urchester, which is actually where my mother grew up, and Aldingbury was just up the road. So as the Bobby Normal stories expand, then probably expect to get more sort of like variations on names from small little Northamptonshire villages. But Wellington, it really has sort of like a fond place in my heart, because like I say, it is where I grew up, and so my feelings for it tend to be very similar to Sam's feelings. You know, when he goes back in the shadows of Lancaster and he visits All Saints, you know, he goes in and he looks at his photo in like the vestry when he was a chorister, and that's based on, again, reality. I was a chorister. I had a red ribbon and a green ribbon, and my photograph was still up there. I've got one kicking around somewhere, but there is no way I'm going to show it to you live on YouTube or Patreon right now. That'd be far too embarrassing. But I feel it gives this all like a real nice like personal touch to Wellington. The fact that, like Lancaster, it was a real place, although I have changed the name. And yeah, I'll be using it a lot more, especially as the stories continue. So watch this space. Take care now, and keep looking for what lurks in the shadows.